Hello everyone, welcome to Craft Apple today. My name is Caroline and today we are going to make a Starlike Snowflake Ornament. This is what it looks like right here. And this is not my original pattern. This is pattern by Virginia Jordan. I really like this pattern because it's pretty basic. So it gives you kind of the main technique that you use for a lot of different things, but it's pretty simple and straightforward. And I think it looks really pretty in this white and gold color scheme. So we're gonna do this project together. It requires 50 tri-beads, which are these white ones. Let me hold one up so that you can see that it's kind of triangular shaped. And it uses 10 8mm beads, these big gold ones, and about 25 or 26 of these little 4mm gold ones, and about a yard of fishing line. I'm using 20-pound test. Alrighty, I'm gonna get my camera facing down so you can see my project, and I will see you in a second. All right, folks, we got our camera situated here. I've got my materials down here on this plate. I've got my 10 8mm gold beads. I've got 26 4mm gold beads, and I've got probably more than 50 of these tri-beads. I didn't count them. And what we're going to do is we are going to start with the center circle here, and then we're going to put on the arms one at a time, all the way around. And on our last one, we're going to put on the hanger, come back here, and we're going to tie off. That last knot we're going to put in, that tie off, that is the only knot that's going to be in here, which means that we're going to have an end on this that's going to be loose the whole time we're working on this. So we need to be careful to hold the non-working end, our tail end, in our hand, especially at first. So I'm gonna drape it across my 3 fingers, my bottom 3 fingers like this, and that leaves my thumb and forefinger free to pick up beads with. And I'm gonna hold my working end in my right hand. That's how I like to do it. I'm right-handed. I like to hold my work in my right hand and then mess with my beads or whatever with my left hand. So I am going to start with a gold 8mm, and then 2 tri-beads, 1, 2, and I should make note that when I hold my beads, I am holding them so that the hole is going through my thumb and forefinger. I'm not like trying to do it into my finger because I don't want my finger in there blocking the hole. So I want to hold it so that the hole is going up down through my fingers, or east west through my fingers, or north south through my fingers, so that nothing is blocking the hole on the other side and I can get my string through there just fine. Same with the tri-beads. I want to kind of hold the spikes so that the string goes parallel kind of to my fingers, my thumb and forefinger, as I put the string through it. So now I have 2 gold beads and 3 tri-beads. I need another tri-bead on there. Now I need another gold bead. And this fishing line it's been stored on a spool for probably a couple decades. Like, I've had this spool forever. And so the string keeps curling up. But as long as I keep hold of my working end and keep hold of my end, the curls are just gonna spring apart and back together and apart and back together, and hopefully not tie in knots. So now I need 2 more tri-beads. That one was being stubborn. It didn't want me to pick it up. Okay, now I need another gold one. That one's hanging out in the neighborhood. We'll try him. Now 2 more tri beads. Now 1 more big gold one. And now 2 more tri beads. What is stuck in the middle of this tri bead? Looks like some gold paint. Not sure how that got there. Okay, there we go. And now what we're going to do, we should have 5 gold 8mm beads, and we should have 10 tri beads on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back through all of these, starting with the first one that we put on. So what I like to do is I like to, I'm going to pull this tail a little longer actually, so that I've got several inches left on there. And I'm going to hold a little bit of my working end over top my the tail end, kind of in a circle, so that this makes a big loop. And then I'm just going to slide the beads from the big part of my loop, oops, from the big part of my loop onto my working end. And now this is my string just kind of curling around and popping into there. So I'm going to ignore it, just try and avoid it. And I'm going to put my working end back through all of these. And what I find to work well is to just kind of slide them from the loop over onto the working end. I find that to be easier than to try and pretend I'm threading them again, instead of just kind of sliding them onto the working end. Okay, now we've gone back through once. I'm going to pull my circle a little tighter here. So now you can see I've got them all in a circle. Well, the beads aren't making a circle, but my string is making a circle. Here's my tail here. And here's my working end here. And now I've got my hands back on it. And now I'm going to repeat that process again. I'm going to take my working end and line it up down here and slide the beads again from the loop back onto my working end. So this is just like we did on the last round. Okay, now that I've got them all on there again, I have my tail here, and I have my working string here, and I am going to cross those like that and then just start pulling on them. Try and keep them all in plane. Oops. No, 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 it came off my working end. How did that happen? Oh my goodness. All right, I'm gonna have to string that again, I think. All right, well, some of them are still on. Okay, there's my end right there. It's right underneath my fingers. See, I got 2 strings here, I've got 3 strings here, I've got 3 strings going through that bead, and those 2 beads. And those are the only ones that have 3. So I'm going to continue to slide my beads back onto my working end until all of them have 3 strings going through. So if you happen to drop it or something and pick it up and you don't know where you are, just count how many strings are going through each of the beads, and that will help you. That will help you figure it out. You want to have 3 strings going through all of the beads. Was that my working end that fell out, or was that my tail end that fell out? I guess we're going to figure it out. Okay, maybe that was my tail end. Okay, I'm holding onto my tail end again right now. I'm holding it with my bottom 3 fingers of my left hand, curling my hand around now so that I don't drop it again. Wait a minute. It happened to me again. My end fell out. Well, that's stinky. All right, well, I'm going to do it differently this time. I'm going to take my working end, and I am going to pretend it's a needle, and I'm going to go back through here. Or maybe I'll just be careful to not let go of my tail end here, because that seems to be my problem. And I can do this pretty easily with my fishing line. It's not going to bind or tie in knots or get all kinked up like wire would. I just got to be careful to only go through my beads and not go through the loops of fishing line that are wanting to spring all up back into a coil and get in the way. Those pesky ones. Okay, that worked pretty well that time. Okay. All right, so here's my tail end. And here's my working end, and I'm going to cinch it tight for the 3rd time. 3rd time's the charm, right? And if I cross them so that they make like a little triangle, that'll help them to cinch up nice and tight. And if you've got a binder clip or one of those pinchy clothespins or a chip clip or something like that you can pinch onto this string right here, you might find that to be really helpful in keeping your beads in place and keeping it nice and tight while you're working on the arms of the star. Okay, so to make the first arm, we're going to make the arms now. The first arm is going to be, well, all the arms are basically the same. So the first half of the arm is 4 tri-beads, and you can let them fall down to the end of the string, that's fine. 2, 3, 4, and we're going to put on an 8mm gold one, and that one I'm going to keep in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and curl my fingers around this line so that it doesn't get far away, because I'm going to go back through it in just a second. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Okay, now I'm going to pick up one of my 4mm beads and slide it on and let it fall and go back through my big 8mm bead backwards so that I have a loop down here. Now I'm going to grab this bead and kind of keep the loop open. It's doing a pretty good job of staying open for me right now. And hold on to the bead until it gets nice and snug up here to the column, which is snug up against my ring, and I'm going to pull it tight. Now keep in mind that this center ring is going to be loose for a little while. So here I'm tightening up my tail, pulling on my tail in order to tighten up my ring, and now I can see that this is pretty loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my thumbnail in here, my thumb, so that I can snug that up against the center ring, and then I'm going to pull on my working string. See, I'm wrapping it around my finger right now so that I can get a good grip on it, and then I'm going to slowly let my thumb, as I'm pulling on this, I'm letting my thumb slowly come out of that space. And I'm only going to let it go as much as the string that I'm pulling is letting it go. And now it's nice and snug up there. Nice and snug against the column. The column is nice and snug against the center ring. Okay, now I'm going to put on the second half of that arm by putting on 4 more tri-beads. 1, and these, again, these can fall down to the end, that's fine. 2, 3, 4. And now what we're going to do is we are going to go back through these next 2 tri-beads in our center ring. You can see that our first column is coming out of these 2 tri-beads. You can kind of see that string right in there. And this is our tail that's coming out of that gold bead. We're going to skip this gold bead, which is next in line, and then go through these in the same direction of the circle. So there's my hole. So I'm going to stick my thread through the hole. Oh, now it's trying to come up between. I'm going to kind of wriggle it around so that it wants to go through the next one. And the holes are big enough, and this fishing line is stiff enough that you shouldn't have too much trouble doing that. Okay, so there's my first arm done. So now we're going to do the second arm. So we're going to put on 4 tri-beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, and those can fall down. I held them in my hand because that's just a habit I'm in, but they can just fall right down, that's fine. Okay, I'm going to put on my big 8mm bead. I'm going to close my hand against around the string about, I don't know, 8 inches, 6 inches down from my working end, because I'm going to go back through that in a second. And I'm pulling this out a little farther, my working end, so that I have more closer to a foot. And I'm gonna actually use the end of my fishing line as a needle to pick up the next 4mm bead. And I'm gonna let it fall down the string and then go back through this bead from the way I just came. So it's like I'm turning a U-turn down here and then going back through the bead so that it ends up having a loop over here. And I'm going to grab the bead, the 4mm bead, while I'm pulling on my working thread to cinch this loop up. And I want it to cinch tight in such a way that the column of tri-beads is nice and snug against the center ring. So I'm going to turn this over just so that my hands are in a better position to do this technique, where I wrap my finger through the fishing line and I have my thumb here in between my gold beads, and my thumbnail here is pushing the beads against the center ring while I'm pulling on my fishing line here, and I'm going to slowly pull my string and allow that space to close up, but just only as much as I can pull the slack out until I have my column nice and snug against there again. And you saw me there pull on my tail end to cinch up my center ring again. All right, now I'm going to put on the second half of that arm. So 4 tri-beads. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can let those fall. I held them in my hand just out of habit. You can let those fall, that's fine. And now I'm going to go through the next 2 tri-beads in line. So I can tell that this leg of the arm is coming, the string is coming from these 2 tri-beads. So I'm going to skip that gold bead and then go through the next 2 tri-beads so that we're continuing around the star in the same direction. We should always be going in the same direction. All right, now we have 2 arms done. Isn't that looking pretty? I really like this white and gold color combination. All right, now we're going to put on our third arm, which is just the same, but I'm going to go ahead and do all of them with you just so that you don't get lost or confused. Okay, so we have 4 tri-beads that are going to go on right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, you can let these fall all the way to the base of the star. That's fine. Now we're going to put on our big gold bead. And what I like to do is let my working string fall across my left hand and curl my fingers around so that this bead is right here, because we're going to go back through it in just a second. And I'm going to use a little tiny bit of my working thread. I'm going to pinch it like a needle, and then I'm going to pick up my next bead, my 4mm bead right here, and then I'm going to go back through my big bead like I'm turning a U-turn with this string over here and going back through it. Then I'm going to grab my working end and grab my bead, my little bead. So now I've got this loop here, and I'm going to close up the loop by holding onto this bead so that the string is free to move through it and pulling on my working end, and it should cinch up pretty well. And when I get down to here, if I need help cinching it up tighter, what I'm going to do is push my thumbnail in here and pull out against the center ring. Of course, I'm going to pull out both strings because they're both attached. And I'm going to wrap my finger around my working end, and I'm going to push. I'm going to do several things at once that sounds like it's crazy, but I'm going to be holding the column down with my right hand. See, I got my thumb right on that ball, and I'm going to be pulling at the same time with my forefinger of my right hand on my looped thing, and then I'm slowly going to allow the slack to come out of that line with my left hand. Now the bead, the string is still free to move through that through that hole. So as I'm pulling with one, pulling with my right hand, the string is coming through that left hand. And basically, I'm only pulling through the amount of slack that there is. And as it's pulling out, I'm allowing the string to flow, but only in one direction. Only in the direction of tightening it up. Okay, so now we have the first half of that arm done. So now we're going to put on the second half. So we're going to put on 4 more tri-beads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and now we're going to go through the next 2 tri-beads in our center circle. What is going on here? I've got a knot somehow. Okay, there it sprung up and then crossed over itself. All right, so now we can see that our string is going into our arm through this tri-bead. So we're going to continue in that same direction, skipping over this 8mm bead and going through these 2 tri-beads from our center circle. So I am looking down there, I'm seeing the hole, I'm sticking my working end into the hole, I'm making sure that that is going through. Oh, look at that, it came through the bead, the gold bead too, but we don't want that, so I'm going to pull it out slowly until my end pops up between the gold bead and the tri-beads, and then pull it through the rest of the way. And there we go, there's our third arm done. Okay, now we're going to put on the first half of our fourth end, first half of our fourth point arm. Okay, so we need 4 tri-beads. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can let those fall down. Then we're going to put on our big 8mm bead, and I'm going to again hold my working string a little bit down the line, like a foot down the line, curl my fingers over top of it so that it stops this 8mm bead when I put it on, because I'm going to go back through it in a second, and that way I don't have to find it again. So I'm going to pinch my working end about 1.5 inches or so down between my thumb and forefinger, and I'm going to use that to pick up my next 4mm bead. It's not wanting to. Maybe if I put a little less. There I've got more like 1/2 inch or 3/4. There we go. That picked up easier. And then I'm going to go back. I'm going to go ahead and drop that bead down into the what's going to become the loop, and go back through that 8mm bead, so that now I have a loop down here, and I'm going to hold on to this bead so that the string can still move freely through it, and I'm going to pull on my working end so that it starts to cinch up. And it's going to cinch up down to the first half of my arm, and if I need to, I'm going to stick my thumbnail, actually I'm going to do it this way. This is how I'm used to doing it. Move it around so I can pull with my right hand. So I'm going to wrap my finger, wrap the fishing line around my finger, and I'm going to, with this hand, I'm kind of pushing against this bead with my forefinger while I'm pulling. So I'm going to be pulling with my curled up right hand against my thumb, and see, now you can see me pulling the slack out. And it's pulling the slack out because I'm keeping this pushed against the center ring, and holding this open enough for the string to move through it with my left thumb. Okay, now I'm going to put on the second half of that fourth spike. So 4 more tri beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to go ahead and drop those. Go through the next 2 tri beads in my center ring. So here I can see that this arm is coming out of these 2. So I'm going to keep going around the circle in the same direction. I'm going to skip this 8mm bead and then go through these 2 tri beads. Now, I don't know if you caught that, but this kind of looped around over here, and I had to get it unlooped around that spire. That's pretty normal thing to happen. So just kind of watch where your string is going and make sure it's not curled around here anywhere. Okay, we're on our last spire now. So we're going to put on 4 tri beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to put on 22-ish little gold beads to, oh, nope. First, we're going to put on our last 8mm bead, which mine hopped away earlier. There it is, over there. There we go. And now we're going to put on the rest of our 4mm beads. There should be about 22 if you've bought a kit from me, which I'll be putting those together later today, and they should be up on my Etsy site by the end of the day. So I'll have those linked in the description down below. They will contain everything you see here. Fishing line, all of the beads. No scissors included, but you will need them to cut the string later. Okay, so we're going to put about 22 of these things on our string. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Ah! I caught it. 21. Should be 22. Unless I counted wrong. 21 is fine though. Okay, so now we're going to go back through our 8mm bead so that we do kind of a U-turn down here and end up with a loop again. And this time I'm gonna hold on to the 8mm bead while I pull this tight. And I don't need to do my thumb trick that time. It came out nice and tight for me. Okay, and then I'm gonna put on my last 4 tri beads. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to go through these 2 tri beads. Those are my last ones. You can see I've got my string coming out of these 2. So I'm going to skip this 8mm bead and then go through these 2 tri beads right here. So gotta find their little holes here. I don't know if you can see them, kind of hiding under the shadow of my fingers there. Stick my string through there. Make sure that they're going through the 2 beads that I want to go through and not through any beads I don't want them to go through. Okay, I got this kind of stuck under there. I gotta free that guy up. Okay, so now I'm at the end of my project. I've got my tail still over here, and I've got my working string here, and I'm going to tie a triple knot. And I'm going to make sure it's a square knot by going left over right and then tuck it under. This is the same kind of knot that you tie in your shoe when you're tying your shoelaces. So that's my first knot. And then I'm going to do right over left to tie it the second time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull, I might like loop this over my fingers, and I'm going to pull the fishing line so I can feel it stretch and then relax back into the knot. And then I'm going to do left over right again and pull it tight. And again, I'm going to wrap this around my fingers and stretch the fishing line into the knot and then allow it to relax back into it. If I really am concerned, I can do right over left again. And that is what we call a square knot. And it is a stable knot. It's more of a stable knot than a granny knot, which is what you get when you don't alternate sides going to the top every time. When you do right over left, right over left, right over left, or left over right, left over right, left over right, those will give you a granny knot, which will twist. Square knot will not twist. All right, so now we got our knot tight, and we can just use our scissors to trim off our excess fishing line. And there we have it, Starlike Snowflake by Virginia Jordan. Brought to you by Caroline from Craft Apple. Alrighty folks, I will see you next time when we do another exciting project. Happy crafting!